outrageously cold in the UK right now, but I've just seen The Band's Visit, and I want to talk real quick about what I liked, what I didn't, and what surprised me. Because of the cold, I am absolutely wrapped up, so please forgive the outfit today. Just a heads up, I will be talking spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen it, I want to keep the plot completely mysterious in your brain, then maybe click off and come back when you've watched it. So the summary of the show is a group of musicians try and go to Petah Tikva, but end up at Better Tikva, and then just stay a few nights before leaving. It's a show that is set in very ordinary circumstances. It's not meant to be something that is particularly noteworthy. In fact, it actually says that at the very beginning of the show. But you don't need the extraordinary to happen in order for ordinary things to be interesting, to learn from them, for them to be endearing, entertaining, etc. And this is more or less what a lot of the reviews that I saw for The Band's Visit prior to seeing it were saying. LondonTheatre.co.uk, for example, said it was an exquisite gem of a show which found the extraordinary in the ordinary. And it also got a lot of praise for this when it was on Broadway as well. It won an insane number of Tonys. I think it won 10 awards, including Best Musical. And the West End show has some really big boots to fill. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I was a little disappointed in the book. We'll get onto the music in a moment, but the book itself was just, I don't know, it left something to be desired for me, because I know exactly what it was trying to do. It was meant to be this sort of quaint story about how you can find connections with other people in the most remote of circumstances, and a chance fleeting encounter can transform the way you see the world, and interpersonal relationships can come from anywhere, at any time. And also, it tried, I think, to highlight to the audience that we're all the same at the end of the day. Like, people make mistakes, and people have relationships, and people break up from those relationships, and people make friends, and they annoy their friends, and they get back together with their friends, and all these normal interpersonal things are shared by all of us. And so whether it's a guy just standing at a telephone box waiting for his girlfriend to ring, or whether it's a woman that runs a restaurant in a town with 0 residents, you can find in all these people's lives elements that would reflect in your own life as well, and the way that they see the world, and what makes them depressed, and what makes them sad and despondent about things, and then what gives other characters hope, and what keeps them going and keeps them waiting at that telephone booth, waiting for that call. You can see those things in your own life too, in their own way. So I got, thematically, all of those things that the show was presenting, but I just didn't like the fact that the way that the dialogue was constructed felt unusually, and I say this with the most care I can, unusually amateur. Like, it didn't feel like the snappy script that I was expecting it to have. For example, one of the themes of one of the characters in the show is that he's quite reserved, right? He's almost like this general that doesn't really want to give any personality away. He's just there, and he's there to direct the band, and everything going on around him is unimportant because he's got a job to do. And so they lean into this with the way that this character navigates through difficult conversations about his feelings and about what he wants from his trip and what he thinks of the people around him, by getting him to be very shy, let's say. He doesn't want to talk. So he will stand there and someone will ask him a question and he'll sort of go like that. Like, he's giving away the fact that he's like, nah, I'm not gonna speak here. And at first it's funny. Like, it's played off as a joke in the show. A similar thing comes to mind when I saw Bonnie and Clyde earlier this year. There's one scene that you guys might remember where someone's drinking lemonade and staring at a character sort of past the lemonade, and they're just looking at them. And they take a really long time to drink the lemonade, and then finally they go, ah. And it's this moment of obvious tension being created where the lack of speaking was the gag. Like, that was the joke. That was what was funny about it. And it happens once in Bonnie, and then it never comes back. In this show, they do that with this character maybe 8 or 9 times through the show. So the first time you're like, he's like not talking, and it's funny because he's making it awkward for them, and they're sort of like, oh, is this guy gonna say anything? Or like, it's amusing. But then it just keeps happening. And then what I found really jarring was that other characters were also doing it. Like, there's a guy that works in the restaurant that Dina, this woman in Better Tikva, runs. And he's scared of girls. And there's a girl that's there. And so obviously he doesn't want to talk to her. And he does the same, like, completely flatlines. And once again, if thematically, what you're trying to elicit there is a realization in the viewer that the older generation are the exact same as the younger generation. Everyone has things that they're worried about. Everyone has things that they find difficult, or maybe relationship-wise, when talking to a woman or when talking to girls or whatever. It makes you a little sweaty. It makes you a little uncomfortable, but you have to try and do it in order to grow and to further the trajectory of your life or whatever. Obviously, in theater terms, I'm talking here, like in a story. But it didn't feel like what I was seeing was a mirror of the same man, a mirror of the same person there, the same theme presented in two different ways, showing me that everyone's no, it didn't feel like that. It felt like they only had one way to have a conversation, and they only had one way to make a conversation funny. Because every single time it was meant to be funny. It was never like, oh, he's frozen up and we're like completely horrified for him. It's he's doing the thing again. Let's kind of point and laugh. And I just felt like it was weak, really. And there were other characters doing it as well. Like multiple times, characters would just be silent or mostly silent for seemingly no reason. Like, give them a little bit of depth. Give your cast some depth. Give someone the really chatty role. Give someone the really quiet role, but then have the spectrum in between filled in. Don't just sort of front load it on one end. So I didn't really like the book. And it's unfortunate because I loved the music. There is so much good music in this show, and I could go on for hours talking about it probably, because it's just wonderful. Oh my goodness, it's so nice to have a break from the kind of legit theater sound, that specific kind of classic sound of legit theater, and then your contemporary sound, your modern musical, your post-2000 musical that's going for something very different, and your Stephen Schwartzes of the world and things like that. What they're going for is another sound specifically, and The Band's Visit was so far from either of those things. It was such a relief for my ears. It was very cool as well that it's called The Band's Visit. It's about these musicians, like I said, that end up in Petah Tikva, and they basically set up shop while they're waiting to go home or go on to their next destination and sit at the back of the stage and just play through the entire show. They're constantly the band. So you do have a few musicians that are in the wings, like they're not all on stage, but a bunch of the musicians that would otherwise just be part of the offstage crew were on the stage the entire time, and I loved that, and I love the fact that they interacted, and they were doing little bits of character building, and just all those things that I really enjoy seeing in an ensemble. But they'd be doing that 1 minute, and then the next minute, a guy would hop up with his clarinet and he'd be walking around on the stage and he'd be a character amongst the cast. And his clarinet playing was fantastic, and all of their playing really phenomenal. And it reminded me of my dad in a lot of ways because he's a musician too. He plays the clarinet, he plays the sax. And so something about that really connected with me, and I had a fantastic time listening to all that music. I just wish that in between those wonderful songs, the book had been sharpened up just a little bit. Now, I think this is probably something that a lot of people disagree with, so I'm ready for you to think that I'm wrong here, but so be it. It just didn't really land with me in the way that I was hoping it would. I thought the cast were great. I also saw it on its closing day. It was the matinee before the final performance, and you could tell that they were emotional about it. And there's a really nice moment at the end where it's kind of the bows, but then the band get a chance to play on stage just together one last time, and everyone else that's in the cast sort of goes off onto the side little corridor track, and they're there and they're boogieing and they're dancing and they're clapping along. And then one of the cast members was clearly crying because he was just overwhelmed by emotion, and it was just really sweet. So overall, I liked the show a lot. I think that it's just one of those situations where some aspects of it weren't for me, but I think that they would work really well for someone else. So very glad to have seen it, and if you disagree with anything I've said here, or you actually feel the same way, please let me know in the comments down below. Let's have a conversation. Also, if there's any other shows that you want me to check out soon and make a video like this, then let me know that as well.